Thanks, Phil. Thanks, everyone, tonight. Thank you for the POA and to the Firefighters for hosting this great forum. I'm running for mayor so that San Franciscans all around the city can have more say. Every day at San Francisco City Hall, we see the same 300 people, the same voices, and it's great to see them, but I kind of feel like the rest of the 799,000 voices are missing. So we started a website called Reset San Francisco, which is there to organize and talk to folks who might be too busy to actually come down to City Hall and participate in our very important civic dialogue. I think it's so important at this very critical juncture right now that we have more voices, more opinions, more ideas. Clearly, all the ideas that we've had that haven't always worked need to be challenged. We need that so that we can have better unity, so that we can have a better planning department, a better building department. We need that so every single part of government can and should be better. I spent the last 6 years actually reforming the assessor's office, something that I focus on every single day. Because of that, we've actually brought in over $300 million above our budget. That's money that went to public safety, that went to public health, that went to education. It's money that we sorely need. But let's be honest, if we don't become more efficient, if we don't figure out how we can do more with less, we have a public that's not willing to invest in government as much as it used to. And they are also not taking any of the many services that they require off the table. So we're at a point where we have to make sure that we are making government as efficient as possible. And I think that's the most important thing that we can do right now, is we have to be able to make government work. Right now, government has to function better. And if it functions better, I actually believe that the public will start to reinvest more. They will invest more in roads, in education, in the environment. And I think it's so critical that we, as a city, set the example for that.
Time.
So can I just ask a thing on the timekeeping? When you put that up, that means 30 seconds or we're done?
30 seconds for the first yellow.
Thank you. I'm Joanna Rees. Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate being included. I moved to San Francisco 18 years ago to raise my family. I came here because I love the diversity, the inclusiveness of this community, and I also thought of San Francisco as the innovation capital of the world. I'm an entrepreneur who then founded a venture capital fund. I've supported more than 60 Bay Area companies who've created thousands of jobs. So I know a lot about job creation, getting in the trenches with entrepreneurs and rolling up their sleeves to turn an idea into something of value. I've also spent more than a decade working to improve our public schools here in San Francisco and across the country. I was fortunate to have a great mentor in my life, a woman named Ann Richards, the first elected female governor of Texas, who instilled in me I had an obligation to go into public service. 2 years ago, I started what I called a listening tour, and I just went neighborhood by neighborhood and listened to people in San Francisco. I asked them what they loved about the city, what they were concerned about, and what they wanted in the next phase of leadership. I always say I discovered the silent, rational majority in that process, but I heard loud and clear from people we need a new approach to some of our long-term systemic challenges. And I always say my moment of obligation when I knew I had to run, when I became convinced the only way we'll significantly impact public education is if the mayor makes it a high-level priority, because it's going to take a community-wide effort for us to get things in the right direction. I also heard we have to grow our way out of the budget deficit, and the way we're going to do that is by retaining jobs in the city and also reversing the commute. 25% of our working population commutes out of the city every day, and we want to keep those jobs here. I also heard from people, I'm willing to pay my fair share, but you got to tell me where my money goes, and we need to bring more openness into our government and more transparency so we really do strengthen the bonds and the trust between the community and City Hall. I'm running a very intense grassroots campaign. We've knocked on 110,000 doors. I've done 7,500 myself in heels. Walk every merchant corridor, work the bus stops in the morning, and have really enjoyed the process of engaging with this community, and thank you for having me here.
Good evening. I'm City Attorney Dennis Herrera, and I've had the good fortune of being your city attorney for nearly 10 years. And I'm running for mayor of San Francisco for one simple reason, and that's to make San Francisco a city that works. I happen to believe this is an incredibly important mayor's race. I think this is a seminal election for San Francisco. I think it is the most important mayor's race we have had in 20 years, and the most important mayor's race that we are going to have for the next 20. Because of both the opportunities and challenges that we find before us. You look at what's happening across the country. People are cynical about government. In Washington, Democrats, Republicans can't come together and come up with problems to make sure that we have fiscal sanity at the federal level. And that's something that you've seen in state governments from New Jersey to Wisconsin to Indiana, right here in California. And what that tells me is that as the federal and state governments shift more and more responsibilities off their balance sheets, it's going to fall to those of us at the local level to demonstrate and inspire confidence in people that government can make a difference in people's lives each and every day. That we can create economic opportunity and demonstrate to the electorate that we can be responsible with the taxpayer dollars that we already have. And that's why I'm running for mayor, because I know that we can do better. And I know it because for nearly 10 years as your city attorney, I've used the power of the law to make a difference in people's lives each and every day. And a big part of what I've done has been working with my brethren in public safety. I come from a police family. My granddad was a New York City cop for 20 years, and as many of you know, I've had the good fortune of serving on the police commission for 4 years, 3 of which I was president. And as city attorney, I defend firefighters and police officers each and every day. Nearly 500 cases I've had the opportunity to either defend or continue to defend in my nearly 10 years as city attorney. 130 of them we have won by dismissal or tried to a defense verdict. It's a record I'm proud of, working with you in partnership, and I look forward to working with you to make San Francisco be the best city that it can be. Thanks very much.
I'm Bevan Dufty, and I served 8 years on the Board of Supervisors and for 5.5 years as the Director of Neighborhood Services. And so San Franciscans would call me every day and let me know what wasn't working in our city. The streetcar that didn't show up or was dirty, the pothole that caused a bicyclist to break their arm or for a motorist to break their axle. And generally letting me know that they were having to make a choice to leave San Francisco because they didn't get assigned to a school that they felt was going to give their child a quality education. And I've always had to roll up my sleeves and be scrappy enough in this San Francisco environment to make something happen in city government. And I'm a believer that we can fix the big picture by building all the things that need to happen that challenge us every day. Managing Muni, improving our public schools, and ensuring that every family has access to that so we keep families here and we attract businesses that want to be here, that feel part of growing our economy and also growing the next generation of workers. But I want to speak for a minute about why we're here. And it's amazing to me that so many members of the public are here at a forum sponsored by the POA and the Firefighters. And it speaks to the fact that I believe that a city can't exist without public safety. And there's tremendous public support to see our city government do a better job of supporting our police and firefighters. I've always felt, working in neighborhood services, that if I could look at the city through the eyes of a beat cop, that I could see what needs to happen. Too often we expect police to handle a situation that has been going sideways for years. No matter whose name is on the door of room 200, for me, John Santaroni, who is the mayor of UN Plaza, was a beat cop that ran UN Plaza for years. And to listen to him and to understand how the city could better work, or to ensure that our code enforcement, so we're not having firefighters going into dangerous situations that we can prevent. So I look forward to a discussion tonight that really is around public safety and what needs to happen in San Francisco. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to start by thanking the POA and the firefighters for having this forum tonight. Thank you, Mr. Michela, for spending the evening with us. And thank all of you for being here to listen to the 6 of us. My great-grandfather came to San Francisco from Sicily back in the 1800s. He was an 8-year-old boy who got on a ship and showed up in San Francisco's ports. He got his first job lighting the lampposts at Fisherman's Wharf, worked his way up to washing down, boating the decks on fishing boats, and then slowly worked his way into becoming a fisherman. He saved his money and bought his very first fishing boat, then saved a little more and bought a second one, and a third one, and a fourth one. And when the earthquake hit in 1906, he took all of his fishing boats out into the middle of the bay after filling them with San Franciscans who were trying to escape the fire. It was in the very last fishing boat that he met my great-grandmother. And the two of them sat and talked while they watched San Francisco burn and came back to San Francisco to start a family that would then go on to help rebuild San Francisco. We look at this beautiful city of ours, and on San Francisco's flag, there is a giant picture of a phoenix rising itself from the ashes. That's who San Francisco has always been. We are fighters. We have always made what looks like a mess into something really beautiful. And it is because of our firemen and our police officers that we were able to restructure ourselves and rebuild ourselves. As we go into the future, that's what we're going to continue to have to do. I spent 7.5 years on the Board of Supervisors, focused primarily on issues related to job growth and job development and disaster relief for a community that really needed it after the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake. So I just want to say I look forward so much to the discussion of ideas and the debates about our beautiful city, and I want to thank you again for being here today.
Good evening. My name is David Chiu, and I am honored to serve as the president of your Board of Supervisors. By way of background, when I was 21 years old, I received a master's in public policy to study both how government should be made better, as well as to study innovation in criminal justice. And this is part of the reason why 15 years ago I moved to San Francisco to work for a period of time as a member of the San Francisco District Attorney's Office as a criminal prosecutor. I also spent time, after I served as a DA, as a founder of a small business, and know how important and how difficult it is for us to create jobs here in San Francisco, particularly with the lack of help that city government often provides to our business community. And at night, like many of you, I was very involved in our local community. I served as the head of the neighborhood association leader and chaired an affordable housing nonprofit organization. I ran for office in 2008, in part because at that time, City Hall was not as functional as we needed it to be. We had a mayor and a board of supervisors who often fought, who often weren't able to tackle the challenges that are facing our city. And I'm very proud now, 3 years into my time as the president of your board, that we are doing much better. The tone at City Hall has changed. We are balancing our structural budget deficits on time, unlike Sacramento. We are winning the America's Cup. We are creating jobs and creating housing. We're doing what we need to do, but obviously this mayoral campaign is about the future. And what I hope to do through the course of this evening and through the course of our campaign is to talk about our vision, my vision, for a 21st century economy in San Francisco. Our vision for how we make sure that the demographics of San Francisco that has been losing thousands of families, thousands of working folks who haven't been able to house our firefighters and our police officers here in San Francisco, how we make sure they're here in our city, and how we make sure our city government remains as wonderful as the city that we live in. Thank you.
So has everybody made up their minds now? All right, now we're going to go